Okay. I wanted to do one more video um, before I went to sleep. Um, I'm about done up here. And so, what I wanted to talk about is the gear basically do what you have, but do what you have. Basically, let's say you're brand new, or whatever the case may be, or you could be brand new, or let's say you're even an experienced um, engineer and so forth, and let's say you have um, whatever studios and whatever you have, um, whatever monitors, interface, whatever gear. If you've been studying and researching gear, or maybe you're looking for more gear, or maybe some additions, or whatever the case, the reason why I'm making this video is there's so many choices of microphones, studio monitors, audio interfaces. There's so many choices of everything, plugins, software, that I guess the point I'm trying to make is, for example, sometimes if you are watching, uh, let's say, let's say you're like me, and I watch a lot of home recording studio videos, commercial studio videos, a lot of studio tours, whether they're a professional commercial studio tour or a lot of home recording studios. On top of that, I've been to quite a few recording studios, um, other than my own. Here is the thing: there's so much gear. It's kind of like it makes you wonder sometimes. Um, it's almost like it can be an inadequacy type of feeling when you start going to or watching some of these studio tours, or going to some of these studios or whatever, and let's say you go to one studio and they have, let's say, just their studio monitors by themselves. They have some expensive studio monitors, like some ATCs, SCM 45As or something like that, uh, $20,000 or whatever, right? Just those, and then they have some Aspergers in the wall. Or you'll see another studio, and let's say you start seeing all these studio tours, and let's say some of these studio tours have studio monitors that, for example, in your studio you can't afford. You might look at one studio tour and they may have a pair of Adams, A7Hs or whatever, or some Focals that are $5,000, or some PMC that are $40,000, or you'll go to see another studio that has $10,000 studio monitors, or just list just goes on and on. And let's say all you could afford was a set of maybe $300 studio monitors. And you start seeing all these studios that have a lot, these super expensive studio monitors. It can make you feel, like, man, my gear is not good enough. Or let's switch to, let's say all you could afford, all you had the budget for was like a Behringer Euphoria 404. It's a 4-channel audio interface like the Behringer. But then you start seeing some of these studios that have Lynx Auroras, or they have Apogee Symphony, or an Antelope Orion like I have, or they'll have super expensive audio interfaces, and you'll think, man, maybe my audio interface, I can't afford one of them. And the list just goes on for microphones. The list goes on for all the numerous amounts of gear. You start seeing studios that have all this expensive outboard gear, or you'll start seeing some studios having a very expensive mixing console, or some studio have some really nice gear. And will it make you feel inadequate, especially when you start looking at the amount of choices? And let's say you bought some MXL Marshalls and microphones, and then you start seeing Sawyers or Telefunkens or Newman microphones or whatever. The list is long. Lawton Audio. It just goes on and on. And you start looking at the price, like maybe one Lawton Audio, $1,300, and you just don't have that kind of money. Let's say all you can afford was just like a Marshall MXL 440 or something like that. That's all you can afford. Then the question would be, whatever the case, or let's say, for example, right now I'm using this Behringer mixer and a little art tube. It's very affordable, $50, $60 preamp coming through this mixer. It's a USB mixer, so it can be used as an audio interface. And that's all you can afford. Let's say this mixer I think only cost me $89, maybe $99, and that interface was 60 some bucks. I don't remember what I paid for it because I bought it years ago. And that's all your budget can afford. But then you start seeing a lot of studios. Let's say you look at the video, and you start seeing, all the expensive preamps I got in the back, like that, that LA 610. That's a $1,500 preamp. Or you see my Avalons; those are, pretty pricey, and so forth. And then you say, oh, he's got an Antelope. And you look at the price, oh, that was $33,000. Whatever case, right? I can't. It's kind of like asking the question, me using, that I'm using this Behringer mixer that's also can act as an audio interface, and this art preamp. So here's my question. Why isn't that good enough? It's kind of like with this vocals, right? Why can't that be good enough? Because you start seeing the the issue with this gear, and why it's so much. The choices of so much gear out there, ranging from preamps, channel strips, consoles, compressors, equalizers, effect processors and delays, microphones, studio monitors, cables, acoustic panel, and just the list just goes on and on. Microphone stands, controllers, software, plugins, and the list just goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. So the next question would be, and some of this, of all that, between studio monitors, microphones, and all that, some of that stuff is really, really affordable. And then some of it can get super, super expensive. And the question would be, with all the expensive gear, you know, is the cheaper, more affordable gear even good enough? And there are going to be lots of people on the internet and YouTube that's going to say, yes, this Behringer USB mixer, and even this preamp, even the preamp in the mixer can be good enough, or this Art preamp can be good enough. This microphone I'm using is a Marshall V67 microphone, condenser microphone. Can it be good enough to record vocals for into your DAW? Now here's the boils down to, it's going to boil down to all the different opinions on the internet. I'm going to tell you what, there's going to be several types of people on the internet when it comes to this gear. One type is going to be whatever gear that they're showing on their YouTube page is going to be the best in the world. And when they say it's the best in the world, meaning it's that piece of gear and everything below it is subpar, because the piece of gear that I have is the best. Which means, and I know that when it comes to the best, there can only be one person in that, or one thing in that position to be the best. And then sometimes can be plural. The best meaning multiple, like here's the top 10 best. So there could be a wide range. It just depends on how they're using that word, the best. If they're saying this is the best microphone, or these are the best microphones. Okay, when there's plural, then it gives you more options. But it still can be biased, because maybe their list is expensive gear that you can't afford. These are the best, top 10 best studio monitors, and they start naming like Westlake and Ocean Way and Osberger and Dyn Audio and PMC, and you start looking at the prices of those, and Focals and Barefoots, and the cheapest one on the bunch maybe $6,000 each, whatever. And you look at your budget, I can't afford a pair of $12,000 studio monitors. I don't have that kind of budget. All I can afford is a pair of it's kind of like my JBL 305s right here, right? That's the middle ones. The JBL 305s. They're a couple $100 a piece each, right? How come those JBL 305s, why aren't those good enough? And you'll start seeing someone with a pair of $10,000 ATC SCM 25s or whatever, and then you got a pair of $300 monitors, and they got a $10,000 monitors. And then you start seeing the videos, and maybe they might do an unboxing or review or whatever. And sometimes these guys say, well, ATC sent me these speakers or whatever, when actually ATC sent them because they're being sponsored by ATC to review them, to draw customers. They don't tell you this because no company just sends anyone anything without them. There is a profit or whatever. Or like, for example, ATC is, we will send you these monitors, you review them, and they'll have a link in their descriptions on their channel for you to click on to go to ATC to purchase those. That's how he gets the incentive. Either he gets to keep, he makes money from them, or maybe he has to send them back at one point, but he's getting a small cut for every time someone clicks on the link. Or if they get enough people to buy through his link, ATC might, well, we've gotten 10,000 customers that purchased ATC speakers, so we'll give you those pair. Or sometimes they may say, we'll give you the speakers, but in the contract you must say that we sent them for you to review. And they don't, there's all kinds of. But let me get back to my point. Let's say. So my question would be, why wouldn't these JBL 305s be good enough to mix on? Why wouldn't this Marshall V67 microphone be good enough to record vocals on? Why wouldn't this Behringer USB mixer be good enough to be used as an interface? It's like when I plug it in, my PC immediately sees it. When I go to my DAW and leave it plugged in, my DAW sees it as a USB mixer. It has preamps on it, 2 microphone preamps, and it's got an additional 4 more channels, stereo, pair, so you can use those as additional inputs. You can at least plug 6 things into it. And it does have an EQ on it. And it also has an FX send, so you can send, like, let's say you want to send this through to a compressor. Why wouldn't it be good enough, to record your vocals? Or why wouldn't those be good enough to mix on? And I'll go back to the reviews. Let me go back to what I was saying about the 3. There is always these type of people on YouTube. There's the people that love the gear that they have. Then there's the people that will say that they don't like the gear that they bought and they have bad reviews about it. Then there's always people that bought some gear and was disappointed and they're changing it. Or you'll have someone that have expensive gear and they thought the expensive gear was good, but then they changed to some other expensive gear. But then there's always the people that will tell you, yes, there's going to be people that would say, yes, this Behringer mixer with this microphone and that preamp, I would say $160, maybe $50, $60, $200. This is all you need with some software, maybe some headphones. This is all you need. Or those $300 pair of JBL 305s is all you need. Then there's going to be people that it can be overwhelming because there's just so many amount of choices of gear out there, microphones and everything else. And what can make it feel inadequate is that the most expensive stuff out there can be out of reach for 80% of people getting in, that's into studio, home project studios or whatever. And there are people that have a lot of expensive gear but in the end, I've always said this, whether it's expensive or it's cheap, I don't care what brand it is. It can be Behringer, or it can be Neve. If you are getting good results, sometimes people don't know that they're getting good results. The reason why I'm saying that is because if you do not know how to use EQ, a compressor, reverb, delay, if your room isn't treated right or your speakers are in the wrong place, there's a lot of factors that has nothing to do with the price of the gear, but it has a lot of problems with the use of the gear. Then a lot of times, if you don't know how to use and place speakers properly, microphones properly, how to use EQ properly, compressors properly, how to set up your DAW, how to use a mixer in your DAW or a real mixer, all these factors, if you don't know how to do any of that, you're not going to make a $100,000 Neve console sound good, because you don't know how to set it. This has probably been stated over and over and over, and I'm restating it again. It's the same thing with you need to know how to use an EQ first before you know what you're listening for with that EQ, and then making a determination whether you should go from a $100 equalizer or some sort of plug-in, or jumping to a $1,500 or $2,500 EQ rack unit, or a plug-in, whatever the case. It's like an SSL channel strip. If you don't know how to use EQ, you're not going to make that channel strip sound good, even as a plug-in. You have to learn how to use it to know how to hear it, if that makes sense. So, yes, once you know what you're listening for, then you can determine, yes, you can mix on these JBL 305s. I do it all the time. I don't have a set of $25,000 ATCs. It would be nice to own some, but I don't own them. I really don't need them to do what I need to do. I can get them done on these speakers right here. Every set of speakers in here. They're not very expensive monitors, because the details, when I listened to someone, and what made me make this video was, there was one person, he made a video where how he had went from $1,400 focals to $10,000 ATCs. And I was listening to his ATC mix and his focal mix, and one wasn't really much better than the other one. When I was listening to the mix, he's got other issues going on, and it could be as simple as, a lot of times speaker placement, room reflections, and everything else could be messing with his ears to make him make bad decisions. Because from what I was listening, I'm like, oh, he's like, yeah, I can release this mix, but this mix would be, and I'm like, and I looked at the amount of likes and all that. I was like, he's got 500-600 likes on the video, but I was like, I was listening to it and I was like, no, even the AT6 mix, it's not, it can be a lot better. And he had a lot of mid-range problems, which made me think he's had a speaker placement problem, because he had placed those focals properly. Then he would have made different decisions. And I probably need to do a video on speaker placements, and it's probably why if you noticed, with my speakers, with my mixing console and my speakers, none of them are next to a wall. There's a reason for that. And my speakers downstairs in my front room are not next to a wall. There's a reason for that. I'm not saying people that place their speakers next to a wall can't get good results, but anyhow. So to sum up the video, it can be overwhelming looking at all this top-notch gear that you can't afford, and then maybe feeling inaccurate with the gear that you can't afford, when in actuality, a lot of times, sometimes you will be amazed that even if you bought the lower price gear, if you know how to use it properly, sometimes that's all it took to make the music sound better. It's just knowing how to use the compressor or the EQ. You'll be amazed how some people don't realize how to use a reverb properly, and how to use the reverb in their mixer, and how to use their delays and all the other effects. And that sometimes that's the answer. And there's a lot of other factors, you know, when it comes to getting proper levels and mic placement and things like that. So, and believe it or not, it's kind of even like proximity. Like, I'm closer to the mic, you know, and it's kind of like, does this mic sound a little bright? Well, let me take the little high end off the top, right? I took a little bit of high end off the top, right? On the EQ. Sometimes that's all it takes to make this mic sound better. Because it is condenser mic, you can still hear it picking up the other fan, right? So a lot of times, turning off that other fan, which, let me go turn it off right quick, because you can hear it. I can hear it. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna turn it off. Okay, because I turned the fan off, you can still hear my Mac. I can still hear it, but see the difference that made? You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, well, let me adjust the EQ on here a little bit, give it a little more top end. Let me adjust them, you know, take out the mid there. I dropped the mid a little bit, or let me add some mid, 25. To make the mic sound better. Let me add some low end, or let me take away some low end. That might make a difference. Okay, let me add a little low end. You know, let me adjust the mid. Let me adjust the highs. Right? And because I am really got the input level on my preamp to really get the tube saturation, sometimes that's all it takes to get, you know, your microphone to sound good in your mix. You know, in the recording, because that's usually the only time that we're using preamps is in the recording phase. We're not really using preamps in the mixing phase. We're using EQs and compressors and reverbs and delays, right? Proximity, how close I get to the mic. If I get farther from the mic, I start to sound a little thinner. As I get closer to the mic, I start to sound a little warmer. That may be the difference. So what am I saying? Sometimes it's not about the expensive gear. Sometimes it's just knowing how to use the gear. And a lot of times when you know how to use the gear, you'll be amazed. Then you'll know what to look for, whether when it's time to upgrade to more expensive gear. Because now your ears are starting to adjust to what you're listening for. And it's like, okay, this is what I'm listening for when I'm listening, you know, from a $300 preamp or a $1,000 preamp to a $3,000 preamp. And you'll start to notice subtle differences. And a lot of times, and sometimes just the preamp, jumping from a preamp may change the character a little bit. But a lot of times it boils down to the microphone, right? which gives me one more example. Give me one more. I'm gonna do one more thing. Hold on right quick. So I'm gonna do one more thing. I'm gonna grab another mic. So you can see what I'm talking about. Hold on right quick. I should have done this earlier. Okay, I'm back. I'm gonna do one more experiment. One more experiment, and I'm gonna end the video. One more. All right. I'm gonna do one more experiment. So I'm gonna turn the volume down, and I'm going to switch out the mic. All right. Now, I changed out the mic. I switched from my Marshall V67 microphone here, which is this microphone, to my Rode NT2A. It's a Rode NT2A. This is the mic. This is the microphone. It's set in cardioid, and this is the microphone. So I'm running a little bit more, and as you can see, even with this microphone right here let me put the pop filter right here because I'm holding it. So I'm gonna put it in front of the pop filter. As you can see, this microphone would probably be a lot more ideal to if I was going to record vocals versus this one. That's why I'm using this one just as a podcast microphone, because I'm not worried about having these super quality vocals in a pod, for videos. But if I was doing a video if I was doing an actual physical recording, like I'm going to record an artist, I'm moving more toward like my I got microphones that I'm going to use for recording. So you can probably hear the difference in this microphone compared to this microphone. That's what I mean. And this Rode NT2A, is about $399. But what impressed me about the Rode NT2A, and they did a whole session. There's a thing with the Rode NT2A. They did a whole entire session with this microphone in Nashville at a top line recording studio. But what really impressed me was when I watched the Rode factory tour with Peter Friedman. I was so impressed at how these microphones are made. That's why I have two of them. This microphone right here is a well-built really good microphone. So this is what my example of what I'm saying about. This is the what I'm saying about. Do I need super expensive stuff to get high quality recordings? And I'm going to say no. You have to know what you're doing. Don't let super expensive gear, and I'm not saying, if you can afford it, super expensive gear, of course, by all means. But it's more of what your ears are trained and listening for. Now that my ears are trained for, that's why I have preamps like my Universal Audio 610 preamp and my Avalon preamps and things like that, and my Neve style preamps, the Altrons over there, and so forth, my Tone Beast, and you get the point. So I hope that this, because it's overwhelming and it can make you feel inadequate, that you can't, most of us can't afford a Asperger, most of us can't afford a $20,000 or $40,000 Newman U67 or whatever the case. No one, we can't afford microphones like this, and in a mix, this microphone would do absolutely great in a recording. Very affordable microphone. And it's a well-built microphone, and it would do absolutely well in a recording. So I'm trying to, I hope I made my point with this video, because you can get overwhelmed with the amount of choices when it comes to microphones and speakers and preamps and audio interfaces and compressors, and and I've seen people trash some of the cheapest gear, and most of the people that trash it don't even know how to use it. They only go by other people's opinions about gear. Like, I prove, even with Behringer gear, if you know what you're doing, you can actually make it work well. You have to know what you're doing. And most of these people that have a lot of bad opinions about, like, let's say my Alesis 3630s, there are a lot of people that trash the 3630s, but a lot of people don't know what they're doing, or they don't know how to use it right. And the manual tells you how to use it. And what is, well, anyhow, I guess the British term would be waffling. I'm just baffling, or just, so I'm done with the video. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great one.